Hi, it's Penny here. Welcome to another reading vlog. This week is going to be another one of those weeks where it's the end of the month. So today is Sunday. Next Sunday is the last day of November, and I still have 3 books on my TBR that I wanted to get to, as well as 2 audiobooks. Does that seem realistic? Probably not, although I worked out this book, 100 pages, this one and this one, I think 300 pages each. So that works out to 700 pages, 100 pages a day. It could be doable. I'm also really liking the way that all of these books have yellow covers. So they kind of go with the beginning of summer. I mean, not technically. Technically it's still spring, but it's definitely feeling like the beginning of summer. So it kind of fits with the vibe, although a lot of these are ghosty, dark books. This one is kind of, I wouldn't say summer vibes, dark fairy tale vibes. Anyway, I'll talk about these as I get to them, but I think I'm going to start with the shortest one so I can feel like I'm making some progress, which is Burn by J.C. Hart. So this is one of these ones, actually all of the books that I have physically here are ones where I read them 10 years ago or more, and I really love them, so I want to reread them because I don't really remember them. This is the Maiden, Mother, Crone trilogy. So initially I think it was released as 3 really short stories following 3 different characters, Maiden, Mother, and Crone. And I can't really remember what else happens, but I do know the first time I read it, I stayed up overnight and read it in one sitting. So will I be able to read it in one sitting again? I mean, that would really help with getting through it in time. So we'll start with that. Then for audiobooks, I am definitely going to go for a run tomorrow because I was meant to go today and I didn't. So I will start a new audiobook and it's going to be Greenteeth. We'll start with the shortest one again. So Greenteeth, I think I've said quite a few times now. I picked up hoping it would be like cozy monster horror, a little bit along the lines of Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. I think it might be more of a mythological retelling, although there's definitely something about the main character being this monster lady who lives in a swamp and then comes out to help people. I don't really know, but once I get into it and I figure it out, I will check in with you again. Okay, one day into the vlog and already my plan is in trouble. I did read Burn last night. However, once I started reading it, I suddenly remembered that actually Cassie published this novella, and then I think a couple of years later she published another book called Serafina's Flame, which actually includes Burn as part of it and then continues on, I think, with another 2 perspectives. And I'd completely forgotten about that until I started reading, and then I realized that that's what had happened. And I also realized that it would be silly to just reread Burn and not reread Serafina's Flame, because it was actually Serafina's Flame that I remember staying up all night and reading in one go. But I do also have the ebook, Serafina's Flame. So I'm actually going to read Serafina's Flame, not Burn, even though Burn is a part of it. So I've kind of read Burn. Anyway, now that I've started my reread of it, I can actually tell you what it's about. So basically, we're following this old woman or this grandmother. Her son has just died, and she has promised him that she will take him to this like volcano to give him to the goddess of her people. So what happened in the past is her village was attacked and burnt to the ground, and then since then she's been living basically with the people of her invaders and has kind of made a life of it. But now she's decided she's going to take her son's body and also her 2-year-old grandson, going to take them and take her son and like throw into the volcano. So basically we're just following this old woman as she travels, pulling this stretcher with her dead son on it and trying to look after her 2-year-old grandson, and just like thinking about her life and remembering things and like slowly kind of regaining a connection to her own culture and like her beliefs. And it's kind of weird because I would have said it's not necessarily that well written, not badly written, but it's also not anything where you're like, wow, this is so well written. It's just kind of like functional. It's okay, but I think you can tell it's self-published. that could have maybe used a little bit work and it could have been amazing. But regardless of that, I still find myself like really compelled by the story and the emotions of it. And I found it really easy to read because I just kept wanting to know what was going to happen next, even though actually not that much happens. But the ending of it was very satisfying. But when I say the ending of it, I'm talking about the first third, which is essentially the crone part, I guess, of this 3-part story. So either tonight or tomorrow so tomorrow morning I've got to get up early and go to my regular infusion at the hospital, and I will try to do some reading then. I'm usually really bad at it, mostly because they always play music on the radio, which, I mean, it must be a really boring job in some ways. So I don't resent them playing music, but also I sometimes wish it would be a little bit quieter so I could focus on my reading. But I'll try and read something tomorrow. Either I'll have already finished this tonight and then I'll pick up The Last Unicorn, but actually probably more realistically, I will just get this finished at my infusion and then move on to something else, I think. Also, I did go for a run this morning and I started and actually got halfway through Greenteeth. So in this, we're following this Jenny Greenteeth, some kind of bog witch swamp lady, and she has this woman thrown into her lake who basically has been thrown into the lake because she's accused of being a witch. But then Jenny Greenteeth and this witch lady Temperance end up kind of working together against the like priest that like accused her of being a witch. But actually then as well they end up going to ask the High Fae King for help, and he sends them on a quest. It's going to be a quest of 3 parts, so they've only done the first part so far, and then once they've done all those parts then they can actually go and do what they wanted to do. So it does kind of feel very fairy tale-esque, and I'm not minding it, but it's not really giving me the vibes, like the monster vibes that I was wanting. There's a few little bits where Jenny Greenteeth really does come across as monstrous, and I love all of those bits, but mostly, like, this is told in first person from Jenny Greenteeth's perspective, and mostly she just seems like regular, nice lady trying to help out with an issue. Most of the time, she doesn't seem very monstrous, and I just can't help but compare it to Someone You Can Build a Nest In, where there was so much of it, where the main character, Shishishin, was so monstrous, and it was written so well. And that's just not quite what Greenteeth is trying to be, but I wish it was, but it's probably not fair of me. So again, that one, when I walk to my infusion and walk home, I'll see how much I can get through. I don't think I'll finish it off because it's telling me I've still got 2.5 hours of listening time, and it is not that much walking to the hospital. Thank goodness.
Do I look tired? I feel tired, but I'm about to go into town to see the optometrist to try and discover why they gave me a weaker prescription contact for my weaker eye. Who knows how that will go. But anyway, yesterday I did go to my infusion and I did manage to read. I think I didn't quite finish it during my infusion, but I finished it off when I got home. Burn, or more specifically, Serafina's Flame. But what I will say is I think Burn stood up to my memory and like what I thought this was like when I first read it. Serafina's Flame, not quite. Especially the second perspective. We get this mother who's trying to chase down some children that have been stolen. And I just felt like a lot of the story is very internal about the characters' experience and their emotional state. And I felt like they were really talking themselves around in circles in order to make the plot make sense, even though the plot didn't really make sense. There was one part where these children are like, where's the old lady from the first part of the book? And I'm like, I don't think you've even met her, so I don't know why you'd be asking where she is. So just like, it was struggling a bit on logic. And the third part, we're following this young girl who's now got a connection to this goddess, and she's working through that, I guess. And I think there were a lot of really cool ideas in it, but I think you can tell that it was self-published, and I wish it had just been developed a little bit more and some of that logic had been worked through. And I guess maybe the first time I read it, like those logic things didn't bother me. Maybe because I read it in the middle of the night. Maybe. But this time the logic really got in the way of me following along with the emotional experience of it, which is really the point of it. Anyway, summary is kind of disappointing. I don't know what I'll give it. I almost want to rate this separately because this I would still rate okay, but the other one, maybe not. I actually haven't checked my previous rating, but I assume it was high. 4 stars. Yeah, not 4 stars this time. Anyway, rereading. Always an experience. So next, I will be picking up The Last Unicorn. Or actually, last night I read the first chapter. I need a bookmark for this. I love these bookmarks. It's been a while since I talked about them on my channel. I bought them a while ago, but they like clip onto the front and then you put a little ribbon that you can put in on the page that you're on. I would always lose bookmarks if I tried to use like real bookmarks, but these ribbon ones are great. Anyway, I read the first chapter of this and it is really beautiful. I will also say I did make Jace watch with me the other week the movie of this, which I watched when I think I was about 5 and I loved it, of course, because it's beautiful. But because I had watched that so recently, I know that a lot of the actual lines from that first chapter are in the movie. And so when I was reading them, of course, I was hearing them in the unicorn's voice, which was kind of a lovely experience. And it does mean, like, when I read this book, it's very hard for me to separate the reading experience from the movie experience, even though I know the stories do kind of separate, or like they're not completely different, but there are differences. But this is another one of my rereads that I read 10 years ago. So once again, we'll see if my memory holds up with that. As well, I did get, I think, about 80% of the way through Greenteeth yesterday. And I honestly don't know that I have that much to say about it. Like, I think it's well written. It's enjoyable enough. I will note that they kind of have completed the 3 quests now. And every quest, there was the same kind of like twist to it. And so like the third time when it was trying to make out like something was happening, I was like, come on, I know what's really going on. I expect I've kind of got to the big fighting the bad guy at the end part of the book, but since there's still 20% of the book to go, I expect we're going to get another attempt at misdirection or another reveal. Will it surprise me? I guess we'll see. I did have something spoiled for me, so I'm expecting that's the twist actually. But as I said, I'm about to go and see the optometrist, so while I'm walking there, I'll finish off Greenteeth, and then I think I will start my next audiobook because I'm going to do some Christmas shopping while I'm in town as well, so I should be able to get some ways into the 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I think it's some kind of mystery. Is it a murder mystery? Is it someone's missing? I don't really remember, but I did enjoy Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. So hopefully the 13th Tale will be enjoyable as well.
Hello, do I look even more tired now? Possibly. But I did go to the optometrist and he was going on about some kind of blended vision where the idea was that they made one eye weaker so that it would be better for reading. But that's not what the first optometrist discussed with me at all. And also, even if it would be better for reading, I have no interest in having half my vision or like the side of my vision be slightly blurry all the time. So basically, in the end, I told him what I wanted and he wrote that down as the prescription. So I guess that worked out. Anyway, while I was walking there, I finished off Greenteeth. And I mean, it was fine. There were some nice twists and turns, a bit of action. I think sometimes it was trying to make me think something had happened when I knew for sure it hadn't. I don't know. It was fine. Maybe if I'd read it when I hadn't read as much as I have now, it would have a bigger impact on me, but as it is, I don't think it will. It did make me think a little bit about, like, I used to really like Arthur and Camelot kind of mythology stories or anything that referenced that, as well as I used to always like things that reference Greek mythology, but I feel like less and less do I enjoy that, and I'm not sure why. Part of me thinks it's because the things that I liked about Arthur and Camelot or Greek mythology are the things that somehow don't really carry across when other things reference it. Like, I liked the depth of the different relationships and the complexity of the stories and the meaning of the stories. And I just think often that doesn't really come across. So like in Greenteeth, we're referencing the Arthur and Camelot type stories or like that mythology, but it doesn't have any kind of like the emotional drama and angst that the original Camelot stories have. And it doesn't really even have the level of magic or even the darkness. And this is supposed to be a monster story, right? Anyway, it was fine. Then I started the 13th Tale, and now I know what that's actually about. I think I was completely wrong. So basically, it's a story about this very famous author, and she at one point wrote a short story anthology called The 13th Tale, but there were only 12 short stories on it, and so those books all got pulled from the shelves and then was released under another name, and there's kind of a big mystery around the 13th Tale. But as well, like every time this famous author has been interviewed and asked about her life, she's lied and kind of made up some other very creative story. So there's, again, a lot of mystery around her life. But now she's contacted this other woman whose perspective we're getting and asked her to write this famous author's biography. And she's kind of promising that this time she'll tell the truth. So I'm kind of expecting something a little bit along the lines of like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo? Oh, I'm getting confused with the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, right? Anyway, and that it's the same kind of thing. She's writing a biography of someone and there's a connection there. I'm expecting some kind of connection between this famous author and the woman that she's asking to write her biography, because there's no real reason why she'd be asking this particular woman. So there's going to be some kind of reveal around that at least. Anyway, I only got about 10% of the way in. The only thing I was really thinking about it so far is that it's a little bit like Daphne du Maurier. I'm not sure though if I'm mostly thinking that because of the audiobook narration style, but it does kind of have a similar level of detail, which isn't necessarily a good thing because sometimes I do feel like Daphne du Maurier can waffle a bit, and this is perhaps a little bit waffly as well, or like a little bit pretentious, but it's like pretentious writing that suits the tone of the characters that have been created within the story. So I don't know, I'm not in love with it so far, but we'll see how we go with it. Then I guess the only other thing I've been reading is The Last Unicorn. So this I'm now, I think, just about halfway through, and I'm still really enjoying it. I will say, I was starting to wonder about the bits of the book that have been left out of the movie. Were they left out of the movie because they're not as good? Or am I perceiving them as not as good because they were left out of the movie? I'm not entirely sure. It could go either way. Different bits, probably different ways, depending. Although there was definitely one bit where there's these two birds and it was weird. And another bit with like a prince and a princess trying to lure the unicorn. And that bit was also weird. Kind of in a way where it felt like it was written towards a different target audience, or like it didn't feel as like magical as the rest of the story, and the writing wasn't as lovely. It felt a little bit more like cynical and satirical. And those bits I don't really like. And so whenever it wanders into those bits, I kind of like it less. But I do also wonder if sometimes I'm reading it a little bit more whimsical and beautiful because I have the movie in my heart. Now, as I said last time, I'm never going to be able to separate this book and the movie in my head. I do think I just got up to kind of the village around the bad guy's castle. So I don't even know, have I talked about this much? Basically, we've got the last unicorn and she's trying to find out what happened to the other unicorns, and they're going to this castle where the Red Bull has been chasing all the unicorns down. And there's a village around the castle that there's a bit of a curse related to it. That village is not in the movie at all, but I do think what's happening in the village not only plays a big part in the book, but is quite interesting. And I also think it's interesting to think about why they left that out of the movie. Like, was it just time constraints? Or was it because they thought they didn't want that many bad guys? I'm not sure, but I do find this is reading quite quickly, so hopefully I can finish this off. I want to say tonight, but honestly, I'm about to play Hello Kitty Adventure Island, so probably not. Probably tomorrow though, because it is supposed to rain all day tomorrow. Okay, so rainy day did not eventuate. However, we've been having a lazy day anyway, since that's what we planned. And I have finished off The Last Unicorn, and I really did enjoy this, but as I said before, I still just cannot separate the experience of this book from the experience of the movie. And so I really can't tell how I would experience this book if I hadn't seen the movie. I definitely think at times the tone is a little bit different, but I think whenever I can, my brain interprets it in the movie tone, even if that's not necessarily how it's written. But sometimes it definitely has a similar feel. I'm sure of it. I'm sure I'm not making it up. I think I'm sure. As well, I have to be honest though, I do think the movie is better. I think the movie will always be my first love, but reading this and getting like a little bit more in the world, even if some of it I'm just going to pretend doesn't exist, getting a little bit more in the world is very enjoyable. So this is another reread where I'm really glad that I reread it. So now the next thing I will be picking up is Wrayth, which is another reread. Although this is the third book in a quartet. So I read the first two books in the last couple of months, and I'll be picking up the last one, I think, in December. This one, we're starting out with our main kind of, I've put the bookmark on already and you can't see her face, not that it matters. Our main character, she's actually unconscious, or at least not able to move after the devastating events of the previous book. And I don't really know what's going to happen from there, but I expect we're going to continue with a lot of like conspiracy in this religion. Well, it's not really a religion, but it's this order of people that stop these Geists from coming through from the other side. But there's also a lot of conspiracy with these Geist lords trying to get their access back into the world, I guess. So it is only 300 pages. Technically, it's Friday now. I should be able to finish it by Sunday. But also, I'm not going to push myself to read a lot. Like, I'm not going to push myself to read more than what's comfortable, so we'll see. If I don't finish it, I think it's fine if it spills a little bit into December. That's what I've decided for myself, because I've decided I'm not in the mood to be stressed about reading. So we'll see. It's already 4 o'clock tonight and it's Friday, so we're probably going to watch a movie or something tonight, so I probably won't actually pick this up till tomorrow. Then as well though, I did this morning, I said we had a lazy day, but I did do a little bit of housework, and while I was doing that, I was listening to the 13th Tale, and I think now, I guess I'm about a quarter of the way through, and I definitely have mixed feelings about it. Overall, I do really like the main characters, like both of them, and I like the mystery around this author. There's some lines are just really well written in terms of like getting to the point of things. It's kind of interesting because this author, her whole life has been a fiction up until this point, but when this biographer is talking to her, the author is just being like so straight up and direct about everything, and I really love it. But we have also now been getting a bit of this author telling her story, but also actually telling like her parents' story or her mother's story. And like, two things. It's fine, but it's not as interesting as I would like. It's actually also a little bit more twisted than I was expecting. Like, I guess I was expecting a bit more tragedy, but I'm not sure that the main characters of the story are actually good people. So, we'll see, I guess, where that story goes. I'm still kind of in the point where, like, I'm enjoying it okay, but I'm not really sure where it's going. So I'm not really loving it yet, but it has potential, so we'll see. And I think I keep promising I'm going to go for a run and listen to that and then not doing it. But maybe tomorrow. Maybe.
Dancing to your beat, wanted to blend in, no self-expression, 'cause I wanted you to see I'm not so different, fitting your system, so
Okay, so it is Sunday now, so I guess I'm going to be wrapping this vlog up, even though I haven't finished everything I wanted to, both for the week and for the month, but like, close enough, I think. So I guess I did start Wrayth. I only got about 50 pages in, but I'll finish this off next week and make it work somehow. I will say, just from 50 pages in, this so far is much better written than the first two books. Like, I can definitely see the books in this series improving as we go along, and the setup is really great, but I guess I'll get more into it in my next vlog. There's no point repeating myself since I'm not going to talk much about this, but I am excited to read it. Then as well, the 13th Tale. I think now I'm just past halfway, and I definitely am very like engaged in the mystery of what's going on. Although I'm not exactly sure that the mystery is what I thought the mystery was, but I am expecting things to come together in an interesting way by the end. There's a few different things going on. One of the core things, I guess, that is worth mentioning is this element of twins, or like people that were the part of a twin partnership or a twin pairing, but now for whatever reason they are just one half of the twinness, and kind of the emotional impact of that. But other than that, it's really hard to say much about what it's about. It's kind of just this very odd, eccentric family that this famous author was a part of, and her telling her story. But it is going to come together in some kind of way at the end, I guess. I am definitely very engaged in it, but also I do think it goes on a bit at times. But it does have kind of a nice atmosphere to it, like a mysterious atmosphere. So I'll continue both of those things, this and the 13th Tale, in the next reading vlog. But I did read Burn, or more accurately, Serafina's Flame. Did enjoy Burn. Didn't really like Serafina's Flame. The Last Unicorn was pretty much what I remembered, like similar vibes to the movie, but not exactly. I definitely still love the movie more, but I do think the book is like very enjoyable supplementary material. The book came first, but this is one of those cases where I think the movie is better. But again, maybe that's my childhood nostalgia. We'll never know. Oh, and then I also did read Greenteeth. I think obviously this was my favorite, then maybe Greenteeth, and then Serafina's Flame, if I was ordering the things I finished this week. Also, I have my Kobe here to remind me to mention The Witch Roads. Didn't read it at all in this vlog. I was reading it in my last vlog, and I said I would give myself one more week to pick it up again. Didn't pick it up. And in fact, now it has returned itself to the library because somebody else is waiting for it. And this is one of these cases where I'm like, I hope you enjoy it more than me. I do really think the world and the culture that Kate Elliott had created in that was really amazing, but the plot just wasn't drawing me in. So I think I'm going to let it go, even though I feel a little bit curious, but from everything I've heard, I think it's not going to deliver what I want, so it's best just to let it go. Anyway, if you have read any of the books that I talked about in this video, I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments. Let me know if you've been reading anything great lately, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.